Welcome to another edition of Lakeville's City Council Wrap-Up. During this program, we'll highlight the agenda items presented to the Lakeville City Council at their June 1st, 2015 meeting. First highlighted item on the agenda is item number 7, public hearing on proposed assessments for improvements to Kensington Boulevard. And to provide the background information on this agenda item is Operation and Maintenance Engineer Monica Heil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is the assessment hearing for the Kensington Boulevard Improvement Project. The project, as you recall, extends from 205th Street to a point just south of 210th Street where the County Road 70 improvements terminated. The council authorized the preparation of a feasibility report for this project back on December 1st of 2014. The feasibility report was presented to the council, and the council set a public hearing date at its February 17th meeting. We had the public hearing on March 16th, whereby the council ordered the project. Bids for the project were opened on April 24th. We computed the assessments and declared costs and set the assessment hearing at the council's May 4th meeting. The street improvements include the reclamation of the existing pavement surface along with spot curb and gutter replacement. Installation of a new pavement section will alleviate many of the tenting issues that you notice along this section of Kensington Boulevard during the winter months. In addition, those street lights within the business campus are proposed to be replaced as a part of the project. Those lights were repurposed from another city roadway, and they've since met the end of their useful life and will be replaced with lights that match those within the area. The water main within the project area is located in soils that have been determined to be corrosive. However, we have not seen any water main breaks within this project area. So as a part of the project, we will be installing cathodic protection to extend the useful life of the existing iron pipe. The feasibility report estimated the project costs at just under $900,000. After opening bids for the project, the final project costs were calculated to be $1.041 million. Streetlight replacement, which will be done by Xcel Energy, was not included in the feasibility report. That was $113,000, which accounts for some of the difference there. As we look at the project costs and compare them from the feasibility report to the bid estimates, property taxes were originally estimated to fund about $713,000 worth of the project. They'll now be funding about $700,000, which is a 1.8% reduction. Street and storm sewer assessments were also reduced upon opening the bids. They originally estimated at about $121,000 are now calculated at about $120,000. The water operating fund did see an increase from the feasibility report. Originally, we estimated about $63,000 for the cathodic protection. However, upon evaluation by corrosion engineers, the final cathodic protection layout and the costs associated with installing that were determined to be $106,000. Streetlight operating fund, which was not included in the feasibility report, will fund the $113 worth of street light replacements within the business campus area. The city's assessment policy is to assess street and storm sewer improvements. 40% of the costs are specially assessed to the benefiting property owners. The other 60% is funded by general tax dollars. The assessments in a commercial or an industrial area are assessed on a per linear foot basis for properties zoned for commercial industrial use. The front foot assessment rate was originally estimated at $52.16 with the feasibility report. After opening bids, it was finally calculated at $48.42, which is a 7.2% reduction. Those properties with driveway access onto Kensington Boulevard are proposed to be assessed as a part of this project. Properties with driveway access and frontages on other public streets will be assessed at the time those streets are improved. According to the city's assessment policy, the assessments will be levied over a 20-year period for the reclamation improvements. The interest rate is estimated at 4.8%, and the assessments can be paid without interest by November 15th of 2015. Assessments will be considered at tonight's public hearing. The assessment policy follows Minnesota State Statute 429 for public improvements, and written intent to appeal the assessments must be presented in writing to the city and signed by the property owner either prior to or at this evening's hearing. Looking forward, we are conducting the assessment hearing tonight. Following the assessment hearing, the council will consider the award of the construction contract Construction would then commence sometime between June and September of this year. Construction will be done under traffic, and traffic will remain operational either on one side of the road or in one lane in each direction during construction, maintaining business traffic through the area and any traffic that may be detouring from the 50/60 closure. And the assessments would be certified to Dakota County in November of this year. And with that, the council can hold the assessment hearing, consider the adoption of the assessment roll, and also consider awarding the contract for the Kensington Boulevard Improvement Project, City Project 1504. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Item number 7 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 8, public hearing on proposed assessments for improvements to Hamburg Avenue. And once again, to provide the background information on this agenda item is Operation and Maintenance Engineer Monica Heil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Hamburg Avenue project, as you'll recall, extends from Lakeville Boulevard down to 220th Street. The project was initiated as a part of the city's pavement management program. We did hold a neighborhood meeting with property owners back on November 17th and followed a very similar timeline to the Kensington Boulevard project, authorizing the feasibility report back in December, presenting the feasibility report to the council and setting the public hearing at the February 17th meeting, ordering the project following the public hearing at the council's March 16th meeting, opening bids and completing assessments again on April 24th, and declaring costs and setting the assessment hearing at the council's May 4th meeting. The Hamburg Avenue Improvement Project includes the mill and overlay of the existing roadway. The contractor will be routing and sealing the existing cracks within the roadway surface prior to overlaying it. They will also be installing a leveling course to address some of the rutting issues due to truck traffic in the area, and will also be rehabilitating the shoulder of the roadway, which sees some traffic from trucks from time to time. In addition, driveway culverts are proposed to be replaced throughout the project area where the culvert is either buried beneath sediment deposits, has been crushed, or otherwise damaged by truck traffic. We will be replacing these culverts as a part of the improvement project to better improve drainage within the ditch sections. In addition, the city staff is still working with Dakota County Soil and Water and Vermilion River to produce a joint powers agreement to improve drainage within the ditch section. Dakota County Soil and Water and Vermilion River have identified funds available to install chamber systems that will serve not only to draw water away from the surface of the ditches to better appease the property owners abutting the project, but also to improve the quality of water entering into South Creek. That's going to be completed as a separate project, and a joint powers agreement will be brought forward to the council for approval later this summer. The feasibility report estimated the project costs at $463,000. After bids were opened, the final project costs were determined to be $442,000, which was a 4.4% reduction. Property taxes, which fund 60% of the street and storm sewer improvements, were originally estimated at about $288,000. Based on the bid results, that's been reduced to $275,000. Likewise, street and storm sewer assessments have been reduced from an original estimate of about $175,000 to about $167,000, which was a 4.4% reduction. The city's assessment policy is to specially assess benefiting property owners for 40% of the street and storm sewer improvements. That would include the culvert replacement and the surface rehabilitation, but not the improvements to the ditch sections, which will be funded using grant dollars. The assessments are again assessed on a front-foot basis for those properties zoned for commercial and industrial use. The feasibility report originally estimated assessments at $19.08 per linear foot. Based on the bid results, the final amount will be $18.24 per linear foot. Those properties with driveway access onto Hamburg Avenue are proposed to be assessed as a part of the project. For a mill and overlay project, the city's assessment policy suggests a 10-year assessment period. The interest rate will again be 4.8%, and property owners can pay the assessment amount by November 15th of this year to avoid any interest charges. Assessments will be considered at tonight's hearing. The assessments again follow State Statute 429 for public improvements, and written appeal must be presented in writing and signed by the property owner either prior to the hearing or at tonight's hearing. Following the assessment hearing tonight, the council will again consider the award of a construction contract. Construction would not start until September or October of this year to allow time for the ditch improvements to be made under a separate contract. We would again be certifying assessments to Dakota County in November of this year. And with that, the council can move forward with holding the assessment hearing, considering adoption of the assessment roll, and also consider the award of the contract for the Hamburg Avenue improvements, city project number 1505. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Item number 8 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 9, resolution approving the Pheasant Run of Lakeville preliminary plat. And to provide the information on this agenda item is City Planner Daryl Morey.
The Pheasant Run of Lakeville preliminary plat, as Mr. Israelson mentioned, 193 single-family residential lots, 10 outlots on approximately 80 acres of land, located, as you can see, in this large parcel just east of Pilot Knob Road, also known as County Road 31, and just north of the city of Farmington boundary. As mentioned, the property is zoned RM1, and the proposal is for the RS4 district single-family lots, which are allowed in the RM1 district, and the project proposes 6 phases, as was mentioned. We have a nice colored drawing prepared by Associate Planner Jensen for this presentation. I'm just going to hit a couple of the highlights of this proposed development. We were talking earlier in the evening about east-west collectors. This development includes an important east-west collector, 179th Street, also known as Future County Road 9, will be constructed with this development. As you may be aware, 179th Street is built in segments west of here, adjacent to Cedar Avenue and the Crossroads commercial development. It extends to just past Flagstaff Avenue, and the property on the other side of Pilot Knob Road for this one, which I believe is owned by KJ Walk, will connect that segment. So it will connect between Pilot Knob and Cedar Avenue when that project develops. So 179th Street, important transportation construction, will be part of this, and it will intersect at Pilot Knob at a full access turning movements. Another important infrastructure component of this will be the North Creek Greenway Trail Corridor, which you can see basically along the east side of this development within an outlot, Outlot J, that will be deeded to the city and will help satisfy park dedication requirements for this preliminary plat. There will also be connections of the trail internally through the street segments in this neighborhood, which will include sidewalks on one side of all of the local streets except the cul-de-sac street. There will be an extension of street from the Farmington residential neighborhood to the south, Embers Avenue, which will continue forward and connect to 179th Street to provide interconnectivity between the neighborhoods. There was considerable discussion at the Planning Commission meeting about the connection of Elgin Avenue. And again, as we talked about earlier in the evening, typically we do like to have these interconnective streets between neighborhoods. We do have the one with Embers. In this particular location, an analysis was done with the project engineer, Mr. Israelson's son Luke, who designed the development, city engineering staff, in terms of, and I'm not going to be able to even try to get all of the engineering details, so I'll speak very generally and certainly can be corrected if I misspeak here, but there is an existing county drainage swale that runs along the south side of this development, and making that street connection would have impacts on the capacity of that swale, which could result in during heavy rainfall events of water overtopping the street if it was constructed, and even worse, potentially impacting the backyards of the existing homes in the Farmington, existing Farmington neighborhood. So given that concern, it was felt in this particular case that it would be best to provide a trail connection, so there'll be still pedestrian access connection at that point with the vehicular access to the west at Embers, and the crossing of that swale can be done with for a trail, can be done with a boardwalk, so you don't have that impact on the swale system to the south. After considerable discussion of that point at the Planning Commission meeting, I know there was one or more Planning Commission members that were concerned about that, but they felt again that the potential negative impact to the stormwater was paramount to providing the street connection in that point, and so they agreed to the trail connection as proposed. One other point to bring up, there is an existing trunk sanitary sewer line that connects the Farmington neighborhood to a Met Council interceptor line to the north of this property. There is a need to relocate the flow meter that meters the flow and try to break it down between what's being handled or coming out of Farmington versus Lakeville. The flow meter currently is up at the interceptor line north of this plat. It'll be relocated to within Outlot J, adjacent to the Lakeville-Farmington border. That will require that there be an agreement that gets entered into between the Met Council and the cities of Lakeville and Farmington. That agreement will come forward for the City Council approval with the final plat of the first phase of Pheasant Run of Lakeville. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the preliminary plat at their May 21st meeting and unanimously recommended approval. There was public comment from 2 neighboring residents in the Farmington neighborhood that back up to this development, and the questions that they raised were addressed by the developer and by staff. The Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources Committee also unanimously recommended approval of this preliminary plat. And I do want to point out that the developer hosted a neighborhood meeting back last September. Again, there were 7 neighboring residents from Farmington that showed up, and the difference in the time frame between the neighborhood meeting and the public hearing was due to design changes that the developer needed to make, partially related to the design of 179th Street, partially related to stormwater management and ponding. And I know there was also some design issues with the trail too. So given all of that, staff is recommending adoption of a resolution, and this is our first resolution associated with the preliminary plat. And that resolution outlines the 10 stipulations that were recommended by the Planning Commission at their May 21st meeting, and then also includes the stipulation related to the agreement between the Met Council and the cities of Lakeville and Farmington. And I can stand for questions.
Item number 9 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 10, consider ordinance to change outdoor patio hours. And once again, to provide the background information on this agenda item is City Planner Daryl Morey.
Just, again, I'll be brief. I know there's folks that probably would like to speak, but just as a, to kind of go back to the May 18th meeting, we had a presentation on an amendment to the city code for those businesses in the OR and the CCBD district to extend outdoor patio hours of operation when they're within 150 feet of a residential use on Friday and Saturday nights by 2 hours, so from 10 p.m. to midnight. This was something that was directed by the City Council at an April work session. After considerable discussion and on a vote of 4-1, the City Council voted to table action on that amendment. And staff in the 2 weeks since that time has gone back. We've had discussion amongst us, and based upon the input that was received at the meeting on the 18th, based upon City Council discussion, we made some changes to the proposed City Code amendment to what we were feeling would address some of the concerns that were raised. And briefly, those changes are that it would require an administrative permit for those businesses in, again, in the ORC CBD districts within 150 feet of a residential use that wanted the extended hours. If they didn't want the extended hours, they wouldn't need the administrative permit, but if they did, they would go through this process. And at least initially, with the first consideration would come before the City Council for a public hearing. Subsequent applications could be handled by staff. That was a change that we made that went out to City Council today. That there would be an employee present on the patio for those extended hours. Again, the 2 hours additional Friday night and Saturday night. That there would be no live or amplified music or entertainment on the outdoor patio. That noise from the outdoor patio be in compliance with the Minnesota Administrative Rules, Chapter 7030. And what that is the MPCA's noise standards for the different uses and daytime and nighttime hours. That the perimeter of the outdoor patio facing an abutting residential use have either privacy fencing or landscaping screening to a height and was modified to 5 feet. That the, a stipulation that we added again today that went out to the City Council in their packet, that there be no activity of any kind allowed on the patio after midnight. And then finally, that the City Council could revoke or alter the terms of the administrative permit for violation of the terms of the permit. So this is what we have come back again based upon the discussion that took place at the May 18th meeting. And if the City Council finds those stipulations acceptable, staff would recommend that be passed and that this be part of the change in those 2 zoning districts, OR and CCBD.
Item number 10 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Well, those were the highlighted items presented to the council at their June 1st, 2015 meeting. If you have any questions or comments regarding these agenda items, please feel free to call City Hall. The number is 952-985-4400. Thanks for watching this edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up.